Okay, so when did you realize you wanted to play professional soccer?
I think like ever since I was little, like I loved sports. Like I grew up with two older brothers who always played sports, so they kind of got me into it. So I always like dreamt of doing it, but like growing up, there was never a league. Like it was constantly folding, so I didn't know if it was ever going to be a possibility. I always had like the U.S. national team as like my goal, so I always like wanted to be on the national team, and I didn't realize that like that wasn't the pro league because like when you're growing up, that was all you saw for women's soccer. So I'd say like when I got to college and the NWSL was finally starting to be more secure, they were going into like their probably first or second year. My college coach kind of like groomed me to like prepare, start taking classes early to graduate early and be ready. So I'd probably say like my freshman year of college is when I kind of like decided I was going to go for it.
That's awesome. And you're
Sorry, it just completely cut out.
oh, sorry, my
Nope.
Wi-Fi is not great.
No, it's okay. It could be mine as well.
We were just, in your opinion, what does it take mentally and physically to be a player in the NWSL?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned both sides of it because I think the mental side of the game is huge when you get to the pro level because I think you think it's a huge jump and you get there and it's just a matter of like believing you belong there because the difference between players where like you looked up to like the Martez, the Alex Morgans, like you looked up to them your whole life and then you're like on the same field as them, you're like, hey, like I can keep up. Like it's not as big as a gap as you think. It's just like they have a special gift about them that makes them so good and they've made that like they've worked so hard to make that their best quality and like that's what separates them. So I think mentally just like being confident in yourself and believing in yourself. If you do that, like it takes you from being an average player to an exceptional player. Like those are the difference, I think personally, like mentally. And then physically, it is a faster game. So like if the speed of play is very quick, but that's something like you can adapt to and train. Um, but yeah, I do think that the mental side, like us as women, like we could train that so much more. All athletes, and we'd be like so much better off. But yeah.
What's your favorite part about the NWSL?
For me, I think being a role model to young girls because I didn't have that growing up. So like after games, no matter how the game goes, like I commit myself to staying out after and like signing autographs and meet the little girls. Cause just like I know when I got that one experience with the national team, it had a big impact on me. And just knowing you can make a difference in like one person's life after a game. And that little girl is gonna see you and be like, wow, I want to become that. Or like, look, she's strong. Or like, look, she chased her dream. And I just think for me, and that's why this year's been so weird, like not having that. I realize I'm like, why do I do this? Because like we don't get paid a lot. And so like having that like purpose and fulfillment of like trying to pave the way for the next generation fulfilled me. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so off of that, what has been your favorite memory during professional soccer, like either on or off the field?
Yeah, definitely off the field. I got really close with this young boy who's battling cancer in Orlando, and they've like completely made me part of their family. And so like getting to just be a light for him, like he's no longer able to play soccer. So like him getting to like live his soccer career through me and he survived and he's now like 2 years cancer free. So he's doing really well. But like that has definitely been my highlight.
How were you
That's so
connected
great.
with that family?
Yeah, so we get like asked to do different appearances or volunteer events, and that was one of them was to go surprise him with an Alex Morgan jersey. And so like when he was done with his treatment, like we came in and like surprised him with the jersey. And after the mom was like, do you guys want to go to lunch with us? And the dad's like, you can't ask professional athletes to go to lunch with us. Like, and we're like, yeah, of course. And then we just got like from that point on, like we'd go over for game nights and just got really close to the family.
That's super fun. I love that for you guys.
That's so great. And then you've definitely touched on like loving being part of the NWSL because of your impact on the youth. But is there anything else you love about being a professional athlete?
I mean, I love what I do every day. So I think for having that as a job, like I cannot complain. Like I think to be a professional women's soccer player, you have to love the sport. Because like I said, it's not like you're going there and you're like, oh, just like put your head down and get through it because you're making money for your family. Like you're showing up because you absolutely love it. And I love like being on a team sport. Like I love my teammates. I love that aspect of it. So I feel like I get so many benefits from it as like a whole, as a person. Not necessarily like my wallet and my future, like setting that up, but I will say like I've met so many incredible people. So like connection wise, I feel like it's definitely helped me in that sense.
Do you think that the NWSL is advertised enough through the media?
Not at all. I think that the U.S. women's national team is advertised so well. And then I'll have little girls be like little girl came out to me and she's like, oh, Alex Morgan plays for the national team. I'm like, do you know what other team she plays for? And they're like, what? I'm like, no. I'm like, well, she plays for Orlando. Like, I'm on her team. And they're just like blown away. They're like, there's another league? Like, they have no idea that there's even a league. And these are like little girls that like follow them. So that just blows my mind. Like, a lot of people have no idea about our league. So I think that could definitely be advertised a lot better. Like this year, happened to like work out well because of COVID and the Challenge Cup. So we took a risk, but we were like the first professional team to come back, which some people even say like, look at the NBA came back and they successfully did the bubble and they even like didn't even know that we had done it, which also blows my mind because we were able to like successfully do it first. But yeah.
Okay, and then going off of that, how do you believe female athletes are portrayed in the media in comparison to male athletes?
I know like from experience, it's like women were supposed to be very like polite and loving and kind and compassionate, which are all great qualities, don't get me wrong. But like, for example, like the Alex Morgans, like I remember talking to her one time and she's like, I'm supposed to be portrayed as like America's sweetheart. And it's just like, that's just like not who I am. Like she's a great person, but just like she has to be like uphold this like the perfect role model. And I sometimes feel that as well. But like the truth is like none of us are perfect and we make mistakes but we are supposed to be like, we're not usually portrayed as like strong. And I think men are portrayed for their talents and we're more portrayed for like how we look, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And in that same light, do you think female athletes in soccer or even other sports are over-sexualized in the media?
Yeah, it's actually, so the friend I'm staying with here, she's a professional surfer. And she was talking about, because I was like, right before this, I was like, how are you treated like compared to men? And she's like, men get paid to go on these like big surf trips. And then like for her, they'll just like bring models and like take videos of like model surfing. So it's like, they don't even care if the model's good at surfing. They're just like getting her surf, like cut it up to make it look nice. But on like the men's side, like it doesn't matter what the guy looks like. If he's like known to be like the best surfer, that's the most important part. So that kind of like, because that's definitely like a more sexualized sport if you're in a swimsuit. But I kind of got away from your topic. What was your question?
It was just about the over-sexualization of female athletes in the media.
Yeah, I definitely think women are like quote unquote more beautiful, get more opportunities within the media, for sure. That's more of the emphasis, I feel like.
Yeah, agreed. Can you recall any specific times when you or another teammate experienced outright sexism, racism, or any other source of discrimination?
I think I can't think of any off like the top of my head. I know there's been probably so many. Yeah, I'll keep thinking on that.
Yeah, no worries. We can come back to that one later.
No problem. Is there anything you think the NWSL could do better when addressing racial issues?
Yeah, I think like our team, as like a team, they've done a really good job of like having open discussions around our players' like individual stories. And I think that's what's made our team so overt about like making a difference in our local community in Tacoma. Cause like we had players on our team come out and just share personal stories that made like, which I'm so grateful for. Like they shared pieces of themselves that made an impact on all of us. And I think there's only such a small percentage of Black women in the league. And that just is like such a, in all like different races and ethnicities. Like it's a very, I feel like women's soccer is a very like white sport, like a white class or upper class sport, because it costs so much money for club soccer. Like I know for like my family personally, like when I was getting into my older years of high school soccer or club soccer, like I used to get financial aid and I remember being like so embarrassed about it. And that's like my family that was like a middle class, like made okay money, but like club soccer is so expensive that like kids aren't, they fall off the grid or they are unable to do it. So I think there's like somehow our league could do a better job of like getting younger girls in that light, or like at least doing more interviews or showing more girls that are Black or are of different ethnicities and color, like because that'll show younger girls like, look, there's people like you out there, you can do it.
Yeah. What do you feel like the NWSL excels at in terms of establishing equality for all players?
I think that we just got a new commissioner, Lisa Beard, and she's unbelievable. Like I think during COVID, like not having a league, not having fans, we were all like very worried for our salaries. And she's very business oriented. And I think like the NWSL has always missed that. Like they have people that are like, we want a team because we believe in women and like women's rights. And like, it's more like charitable. Like, I feel like women were portrayed as that, like, yeah, give the women the team. But it's like, we want someone to come in and be like, sorry, we're investing in you, not because you're women, but because you're actually a marketable product. Like we know you guys can bring in money. We know we can get a lot out of you as talented athletes. Like that's what you want. And I think that's kind of like our new commissioner is coming in with that type of mindset. And so she was able to like create this challenge cup. She got sponsors by Verizon, P&G, Secret, Budweiser, like all these huge sponsors. And like that's what our league's been missing, like getting us out in front of those big corporations. I think everybody like shoots smaller because they're like, oh, we just don't think they'd bite it. Like we're just happy to be here. But like the truth is, like if we had the right resources and the right advertisement and the right funding, like I have no doubt that we would bring in money and we would bring in fans and we'd have higher salaries. Like Portland, for example, like they get 20,000 fans every single game. And it's like, why are they so different? Because they like have the same resources for men and women in terms of ticket sales and advertising. And I just think that's huge.
Yeah, definitely. Great. Along those same lines, what do you think the next steps are towards narrowing the salary gap between MLS and NWSL players? I know you mentioned Portland, like obviously the teams are jointed and everything.
Yeah, I was just looking at that today. I was like, their minimum is 70,000 and it's supposed to be 110,000 by 2024. And then ours is at 20 and the max is 50. So our maximum is not even at their minimum, which is just mind blowing. I think it's continually putting people like Lisa Beard, like pouring the resources into us. I think if you don't pour the resources into us, like no one will see us, no one will believe in us, no one will invest in us. Because like we know we can fill the seats, we know we have the talent, we know we have something to offer. It's just a matter of like continually exposing us and getting the right resources our way. Yeah.
And then you may already have touched a little bit about upon this, but how do you feel sponsorship opportunities compare between male and female athletes?
Yeah, I actually was just talking about this the other day because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but a lot of girls in the league don't have agents, or if you do have an agent, it's like the same agent for 15 girls. Like, so your agent is really just helping you with like the logistics of your contract. So like, and a lot of people don't want agents because like we already don't make a lot of money. So then now I have to pay an agent for my pennies. And yeah, most agents in the women's soccer sphere aren't like, unless you're a national team player, they're not like the endorsement type. You know, they're just strictly like looking at your contract or looking at abroad opportunities for you. And I think because a lot of girls don't have agents, they get manipulated by a lot of GMs. So like a lot of girls end up being like on the minimum because they don't know any better. And the hardest part is like this balance between like, I'm grateful to be here, and then like, we deserve so much more. Because so many girls want to be professional soccer players, and there's only 9 teams for 4 years straight. So like, not a lot of movement, not a lot of change. Like, it's really hard to be a professional soccer player. So if you're like, I deserve more, like it might just be like, it's on. So I think like, one, a lot of girls don't understand their rights, or don't understand like they're making a really low amount compared to other people. You know, like us as women, we don't like to talk about money. I think that's like a gender thing we've had for a long time, that like I feel like I'm starting to see like we're breaking through that and that's getting better, but like I think that's part of it. But yeah, misrepresentation. So like we don't have a lot of like agents that are like getting us these opportunities. And I think if we did, like if we had more women in these commercials or in these ads, like I think that would bring more attention to the game for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then in light of the salary gap, do you have a second job, or is playing with the rain your sole career?
Yes. So, I mean, my second job is pretty much like coaching. So like when I have time, doing private trainings on the side, because it's again like to do, and it's like the perfect allotment of time. I also have picked up like random gigs with like photography and journalism type things. But it's funny, like you have these like athlete platforms that are like, we want to empower women, and then they ask you like, will you do like a blog post for us? And then they like give you the price, and you're like, you would like, a male athlete would never do that, you know, like you'd have to pay them so much more. And I just feel like you can't say you're like a women's empowerment blog post and then like barely pay the women that you want to like promote as like promoting equality for. I also feel like a lot of events and like appearances we get asked to do happen to be like mostly volunteer, which is also tough because you're like, well, we want to get out there and we want to like show face and we want to like make an impact and bring people to the game, but at the same time it's like it is your time, and that is valuable. I think that's another hard part, is knowing that about ourselves. But yeah, I feel like most girls in the league have a second job, but they pay for our housing, which if they didn't pay for our housing, like there's no shot anyone would be able to do this.
Definitely makes sense. It's really hard. That's why we're like, our whole project, we're really looking into like the wage gap and how, if it can be narrowed, how can it be narrowed, and how can we make it more equitable?
Yeah, because it makes for like a weird lifestyle, because you're like, they pay for your housing, so then they expect you to like live with a roommate, which is great when you're like right out of college. You're like, this is fun. Like in Orlando, I had 2 other roommates, and then like now that I'm 26 years old and like I have a boyfriend, I'm just like, you know, like living with your boyfriend or like living with another person, it's just like, I'd rather just have enough money to have my own spot than
Mm-hmm.
to make less money and have housing given to me. Like it's not as like glamorous as it seems.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Can I go back to like another question that we previously asked, like a follow-up question? I just wanted to know like what you think it's going to take to convince sponsors and like I guess bigger companies and maybe just like managers that women's sports are they should dedicate their resources to female sports. Like what do you think it's going to take, or like how much convincing, or like in what ways are you guys aiming to convince I guess those in power, or like the higher up people, that you are worthy of their resources?
yeah,
and
I
like
think it's a bummer that Corona hit when it did, because I feel like right after the Women's World Cup, like there was a lot of excitement and people like ready to pour into women's soccer. Like we had just signed with CBS Sports, and like there was just like a lot going forward for us. And then obviously it's kind of like sports, like they kind of just taking the back burner on everything. So this will be a tough spot to like come out of. So yeah, that's tough. I do think it's just I think we've gotten like complacent with what we have, and we've like stopped asking, and we've stopped like putting ourselves out in front of bigger corporations. And I think it's just getting back, like Lisa Beard has done a great job of just like, I guess, pitching us to these big corporations that like we get to, I don't know, I think like before, like being role models was a charitable thing, and now being role models is like an empowering, marketable thing. So I would just say probably that. That's a good question. I need to think more on that.
That's a good one. The floor is kind of yours. Do you have any other questions for us, or anything else you wanted to elaborate on or go back to, or anything else you wanted to say about this topic?
I think it's also great that like when I was a kid, like I was such a tomboy because I did not want to be a girl. Like I wanted to be tough. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be able to like chase my dreams or do whatever I could. And that was like nothing like a girl. Like I just did not want to be a girl. And I think it's a really empowering shift to see that you're starting to see, like you see it in movies, like we're starting to put women in like lead roles, and the women are no longer the damsel in distress. So like, I think, you know, you see for Halloween, and like young kids are like loving these like female role models. So they're growing up thinking that and like wanting to become that. So I think like it's similar with like women's soccer, like putting more of our female athletes out in the like in the light and in the spotlight and like showcasing their stories. Like that'll only continue to like create a shift in the culture.